Hey, my name is Sam Goddess, and my artist name is Just Goddess. I'm currently a student at the University of Ottawa, finishing my master's degree in cello performance. I've been classically trained in the cello for quite a few years now. I play the violin and the viola. I love playing guitar, keyboard as well. I love singing too. My goal is to learn as many instruments as I can and collect as many as I can as well. I think it's super fun. I think it's super valuable. I would love to dabble in like brass and woodwind instruments next, because don't play any of those.
The waterfalls of grace, how the time moves with despair.
First of all, I think it would be awesome to just have a room completely full of instruments, and then to be able to go into that room and be like, I could play the flute, followed by like the violin and the keyboard. Like, I don't know, I've always really admired musicians that can do that. And honestly, I hate when people say, it's too late in my life to like learn this instrument, to do that, to do this. Like, just do it, the time is now. So I kind of feel that with a bunch of instruments. But I will say, after being trained classically with cello, learning an instrument takes so much time and like dedication to it. So wish me luck with that, I guess. I don't know.
Every now and then I'll ponder my existing plane and spirit, wandering through certain jumps and leaps the universe and me no better.
So Waterfalls of Grace started on guitar. I made that little scale right in the opening, and I knew that I wanted the vocals to be in unison with that. And I kept the position of E major chord and just kind of moved it up, and that created like nice open suspended chords. The song is interesting. I came into the studio with it being kind of a skeleton, meaning it was just the guitar and vocal. And the way I came up with the lyrics was slightly different. I was at home. I was at a friend's house when I wrote the guitar part, and then I went home that night, and lyrics just kept coming to me. I wasn't even like thinking about the song. It just kind of happened, and I was laying in bed, and I remember I like kept getting up to go to my desk to like write down lyrics, and I was like, oh, I really like that. This song is interesting because I'm a very visual person. A lot of music is super vivid for me. Not all music, but some is. This is one of those songs that is really, really visual for me. Imagine different things with each lyric, I guess. Like a misty forest, almost. Really beautiful blues and greens and gray of stones. I don't know, it just kind of transports me there. The lyrics are kind of wacky, I'm not gonna lie. So I came into the studio with just the guitar and vocals, and we pretty much layered everything else. It's something I'll do a lot when creating at home. I'll just kind of lay down a track and then just kind of improv over it, just record myself improving, whether again it's vocals or instrument, whatever it may be. And then I'll kind of go back and like take parts that I liked and that I didn't like, and then kind of refine it from there. That's pretty much what we did with this as far as adding the cello. Yeah, that was kind of that. It was all just like, all right, let's listen to the track and see what I can come up with kind of thing.
The rain makes me think of you, how it cleanses and starts anew.
Math is a fat one to unpack. Math is. So Math is a song that I wrote about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. While writing it, I was really heartbroken. I'm sure you could tell by the lyrics and whatnot. The minor key it's in. It's pretty emo.
And now you got another mate. I guess I'll stop the wait.
This song really helped me cope with it. Because like I said, I was really heartbroken, and for me, always, anytime I feel any deep emotional thing that I can't necessarily express through words, I just pick up a guitar, the keyboard, anything. Well, not pick up the keyboard, but you understand. Imagine lift the whole piano and just.
I'm no good at math, but 1910.70 is you and me.
So the pre-chorus to Math, I thought we were great, but love was too late. Now you got another mate, I guess I'll stop the wait. That was very relative to what I was feeling at the time. And then the chorus, I would never wish this, but I hope that you never fall in love. That's harsh. And every time I hear that, I'm like, wow, that's super harsh. But it's true to what I felt at the time. I was so emotional when writing this, and it just kind of came out, and I kept it. I feel like everyone, to a certain level, can understand that and relate to that. I remember it perfectly. I was at my parents' house on their little like upright keyboard, which is really out of tune, but I don't know, something about an out of tune piano gets me. Not like wildly out of tune, but like mildly out of tune. And I just like sat on an F sharp minor chord and looked out the window. It was super dramatic and it was raining, and I was just like, the rain makes me think of you, and then kind of went from there, I guess. So yeah, that's Math. Between school and work, I've been putting a lot of time into releasing an EP. I don't have a set deadline for it yet. I'll just kind of keep dropping singles as they come along, I guess. I'd like to thank Abyss Headphones for having me and, giving me the opportunity to share my music. And also like to thank all of you as well for watching and tuning in, checking me out. I hope you really enjoy my music. Thank you.
Now, while the idea of mixing both of these songs was relatively similar, the methodology between both of them was a little bit different. For the song Math, for example, we set up in the other room with the piano, and I had a ribbon microphone, a vintage Shure 330 ribbon microphone on Sam's vocal. This is a super cardioid ribbon microphone. It's got a warm tone to it, but still very clear, not very bright, not very sibilant, which is good for, I feel like, most female vocals. But in this case, being a super cardioid microphone, it's going to pick up her vocal more than the piano in the room, which we mostly left to the Neumann KU100, the binaural recording head. Now, there were microphones on the piano also to help with clarity and detail, but a lot of the space in this recording comes from that KU100 and then widening a bit of the mix in post as well. Now, Waterfalls of Grace was a much bigger project to tackle. We made the entire thing in 2 days, one full day session, and then about an hour to an hour and a half on another day recording some extra bits for the end of it. Then about an hour, hour and a half on the second day to record a couple bits for the end. The first thing we did is we laid down a guitar and vocal track together, so Sam was playing guitar and singing at the same time. Now, this take was not used in the final recording, but what it is useful for is for her to listen back to in the Dyna V2s she was wearing to lay out all these tracks individually. So we got that laid out, and then she went back over it and redid the guitar part and got that all laid out properly, and then we went back and tracked vocals. Originally on vocals, we were using a Sony ECM 670, but once again, we ended up switching and using the Shure 330 ribbon microphone again. But in this case, we were using the 330 with a tube preamp and a tube compressor, bringing out a little bit more presence and warmth to it, and then tried to follow a similar philosophy with the recording of the other instruments here, the cello, the guitar, and so on. The cello itself, we did use the ECM 670 as an overhead, as well as a modified capsule P220 for the bottom end to get a little bit more low-frequency energy out of it. This is for the bass cello and for the accented pieces of the cello at the end of the song. The same goes for the guitar. We used the ECM 670 to capture some of the room noise and the sound of her strumming the guitar, and then used the modified capsule P220 on the cab of the Marshall stack. It would have been possible just to mic the cab. However, I do feel like it is more productive to get as much information as possible, and putting a mic on both her and the room and picking up the sound of the strumming gives it more of a human characteristic to me and brings the mix more to life. It also gives us more information to work with in the mixing process. If we want to make something sound more clean or still pull the guitar back but maintain its rhythm, we can do that by introducing more of the strumming and less of the actual tone of the cab, which is exactly what we do at the end of the song. Then for the upper cello pieces, we used two Shure SM81 microphones. These were just set up in a stereo configuration, picking up left and right. For the entire process, Sam was wearing a Diana V2 for monitoring. Due to its open back nature, it was helpful for her to be able to hear herself in the room, pick up the room and the instrument she's playing, and also to be able to hear through the headphones the instruments that she is trying to play with. So for example, when she was recording the higher cello piece, she wanted to hear the lower one and be able to play in time and harmonize with it, so she can hear the piece she's currently playing in the room and the one that she's playing over in the headphones. On the mixing end, however, 1266 was an absolutely crucial piece of my workflow. Recording with a bunch of layers like this and using multiple mics on every instrument, even when it's not entirely necessary, gives us so much information to work with, and 1266 was the easiest way to piece through all of this information. Now, like most mixes, I went back and forth between 1266, several sets of speakers and so on to try and get everything as balanced as possible, but 1266 really was my tool for the vast majority of picking through the details and fine-tuning pieces to make it sound as it did in the room. The same goes for both Waterfalls of Grace and for Math. Being there in the room, hearing the piano, hearing the singer, hearing the cello, you have an exact reference of what you know it should sound like having been there. And 1266 was my easy reference to sit back and say, okay, this needs to sound exactly as it did in the room. And this headphone did that. It brought it to life exactly how I heard it. It's very traditional in mixing, especially now, to use compressors to try and boost levels and push loudness out of a mix. And while of course every mixing process these days uses some level of compression for attenuation, my philosophy in mixing is more to try and push spaces through the mix by using different microphones, different equalization, and more stereo separation to fill spaces out and bring more instruments forward, rather than just relying on a greater compression ratio to push your dynamic range together. So the mix ends up being more dynamic without sacrificing all of this extra information for the sake of loudness. Through this process, we acquired more gear and started to kind of fine-tune how this room works and how we're recording artists in here, and we plan to bring more videos like this, more artists to you in the very near future.